In the quiet village of Eldermoor, nestled between misty hills and ancient forests, there was a legend whispered among the locals. Ashwick Manor, abandoned for over a century, was said to be haunted by the ghost of Eliza Hartwell, a young woman who had died tragically on the eve of her wedding. Her story was one of love, loss, and an unbreakable bond that transcended even death. The villagers avoided the manor, claiming to hear faint sobs and see flickering lights in the upper windows at night. But for Clara Bennett, a young historian who had recently moved to Eldermoor, the legend was too intriguing to ignore. One crisp autumn evening, Clara made her way to Ashwick Manor. The moon hung low in the sky, casting an eerie glow over the crumbling estate. The iron gates creaked as she pushed them open, and the overgrown path crunched beneath her boots. The air was thick with the scent of damp leaves and decay, but Clara pressed on, her curiosity outweighing her fear. The manor's grand entrance was weathered and cracked, its once majestic doors hanging loosely on their hinges. Clara stepped inside, her flashlight cutting through the darkness. The interior was frozen in time-dust-covered furniture, faded portraits, and a grand staircase that spiraled into shadow. As she explored, she felt an inexplicable pull toward the upper floors. In what must have been the master bedroom, Clara found a portrait of a young woman. Her eyes were soft yet sorrowful, her lips curved into a faint, melancholic smile. Clara's heart ached at the nameplate. Eliza's young death. Cold breeze. Dark flashlight. She gasped, her heart pounding, but before she could react, a soft voice echoed in the darkness. "Who are you?" Clara froze. The voice was gentle, almost musical, but it sent a shiver down her spine. "My name is Clara," she stammered. "I didn't mean to intrude. I just wanted to learn about Eliza Hartwell." There was a pause, and then the voice replied, "I am Eliza." Clara's breath caught in her throat. A glowing figure appeared. Her translucent form shimmered like moonlight, and her eyes, those same sorrowful eyes from the portrait, locked onto Clara's. "You can see me?" Eliza asked, her voice tinged with wonder. Clara nodded, her fear giving way to fascination. "Yes, I don't know how, but I can." Eliza smiled faintly. "It has been so long since anyone has seen me. I've been alone here, waiting." "Waiting for what?" Clara asked. "For him," Eliza whispered. "For Jonathan." As Eliza spoke, her story unfolded. She had been engaged to Jonathan Blackwood, a young man from a neighboring village. Their love had been pure and passionate, but fate had been cruel. On the eve of their wedding, Jonathan had been called away on urgent business. He promised to return by morning, but a storm had swept through the hills, and his carriage had tumbled into a ravine. Jonathan never made it back. Eliza, heartbroken and unable to bear the loss, had taken her own life in the very room where Clara now stood. But even in death, she could not move on. Her spirit remained tethered to the manor, waiting for Jonathan to return. Clara listened, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry," she said, "but it's been over a century. Jonathan's spirit must have moved on." Eliza's gaze never wavered, and her sorrow seemed to deepen. "I do not know," she whispered. "I only know that I am bound here, waiting." Clara's heart clenched. "But what if he's gone? What if he never comes back?" Eliza's form shimmered, and for a moment she seemed to flicker. "He promised me, Clara," she said softly. "He promised he would return. I cannot let go of that promise." Clara swallowed hard. "I understand, but time changes everything. It's been over 100 years, Eliza. Maybe Jonathan never even knew what happened to you." Eliza's face softened, and for the briefest moment there was a flicker of hope in her eyes. "You think that is what it is?" she asked. "That he didn't know?" Clara paused. I think it's possible. That he never received the news of your death? Maybe his family didn't know either." Eliza's face softened further, and she seemed to take this thought in, as though it were something she had never considered before. "I never thought of that," she murmured. "I was too consumed with my grief to think of anything else." She glanced down at her translucent hands. I thought he had abandoned me, that he had forsaken me in my moment of need. I wanted to believe it was because of the storm, that he had no choice. But I never knew. I never knew if he truly tried to come back. Clara's voice softened. What if he did try to return? What if he couldn't? The silence that followed was heavy. Slowly, Eliza looked up at Clara, her face filled with a quiet longing. And what should I do now, Clara? How can I move on from this pain? Clara hesitated. I don't know, but maybe it's time to let go. Eliza's gaze shifted, searching Clara's face. Let go, she repeated. How? How could I ever let go of him, of this pain? You don't have to forget him, Clara said gently. You just have to stop waiting. You deserve peace, Eliza. You've been waiting for him for so long. But sometimes, waiting for something that can never come keeps us trapped in the past. Maybe if you stop waiting, you'll find the peace you've been seeking all this time. Eliza closed her eyes, her features trembling. But I loved him so much, she whispered. He was my everything. And now, I don't know what's left of me. Clara's eyes welled with tears. You're still you, Eliza, even without him. You've been waiting for so long that you've forgotten who you are beyond that love. You don't need to wait any longer. You can still find peace, even without him. The air in the room seemed to shift. The flickering light around Eliza's form began to grow stronger, its soft glow becoming warmer, gentler. For the first time, Eliza smiled. It was faint, but it was there. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for reminding me of who I was. I had forgotten. Clara smiled through her tears. It was never about waiting for him. It was about finding yourself again. The light around Eliza grew brighter, and Clara felt a sense of stillness. Eliza's form began to fade, her figure slowly dissolving into the air. I will go now, Eliza said, her voice barely a whisper. But know that I will always be grateful for your kindness, Clara Bennett. You have given me what I could not give myself, the chance to move on. With those words, Eliza vanished, leaving only the quiet hum of the wind outside and the soft glow of the moonlight filtering through the broken windows. The room was still, the silence profound. Clara stood alone, her heart heavy but strangely at peace. She had helped Eliza find the closure she had been searching for all these years. She could only hope that, wherever Eliza's spirit had gone, she had found the peace she deserved. As Clara turned to leave, she glanced back at the portrait of Eliza Hartwell hanging on the wall. The young woman in the painting still wore her soft, sorrowful smile, but now there was something new in her eyes, a quiet serenity, a peace that had eluded her in life, but had finally been found in death. Clara stepped out of the manor and into the cool night air. The iron gates creaked closed behind her, but she didn't look back. She knew that Ashwick Manor, though still abandoned, would no longer echo with sorrow. It would remain a place of history, but now it would hold a story of healing. And Clara Bennett, the young historian who had unearthed the truth, would carry it with her always, a reminder that even the deepest wounds could eventually heal, and that sometimes the greatest gift you could give was the chance to let go.